How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Simon Whitfield. Most of you probably know him as a Canadian Olympian, four-time Olympian in triathlon when he won his first gold medal in 2000 in Sydney, which was the first year that triathlon actually made it to the Olympics. So, pretty cool stuff. We talk in and around a lot of that triathlon career. We don't touch on those things super specifically, but we do get into some really deep conversation about who he is, his life, the things that he's got going on, his belief systems, and something that is a theme throughout the entire episode, which is this concept of basically holding on to yourself or holding on to self lightly. So I look forward to unpacking that with you. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mr. Simon Whitfield. Well, Simon, thank you so much for taking the time. It's such an honor and pleasure to get to have you on the podcast and hopefully get to ask you some good questions and hear a bit about your life. But yeah, really thankful to have you here and appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to make it happen.
No, I think it's always funny. You get asked interesting questions. You have to think about it a lot, and then afterwards, I always find myself distilling, like, I wonder if that's how I really feel.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
that's yeah. The better the questions, the more I have to insight into it, and the more I learn from it all. So, yeah,
yeah,
thanks for having me.
yeah, for sure. And it's interesting you say that because so I've done a number of different like interviews, but more, I guess, therapy is what I'm thinking of, where, the wisest of counselor doesn't necessarily tell you what to do or say. They ask questions, and that usually kind of gets the thought thinking. And I've always thought it's interesting how asking a question of someone can really guide and direct their life, because once I speak something about how I think or feel that I am inwardly, it starts to reflect outwardly. And it's almost like if you want to cement who you are, you kind of have to speak
Yeah,
it into existence. It's heavy
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I was thinking, my dad used to say, you're choosing the direction in which to err.
Mm,
You're not, you can't chart the path straight to it. You've got to choose the direction in which to err. And in fact, and hold it lightly. So
yeah.
I always come back to that. It's like, hold on to it lightly, because it will take twists and turns that you won't expect. And that's the beauty in it. It's also the challenge in it. So
Yeah.
yeah, count me in. There you go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, since you, I guess, have listened to the show some, you may have know some of the questions that will pop up. But the first one I always love to start out with is to get a little bit of a introspective view from the person who I have on as a guest. So my question for you is, according to you, who is Simon Whitfield?
Oh, geez. I'm still figuring that out. I hope to always be still figuring that out. So, that's the only answer I've got. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know that. I'm okay with that, I'm
Yeah.
okay with the mystery in that. I'm okay with it being a process, and it's had its ups and downs.
Sure.
I really like the idea. Again, I think I said it earlier, but just hold the story of self. I try to hold on to it lightly.
Hmm.
I really do. If you were to come to my house, you wouldn't see, there's no Olympic memorabilia there, because that was, I think of it as a guy who looked a lot like me, who I know a bunch of stories about,
Hmm.
and it's not to repress that or deny that. It's just that I want to live today in the here and the now. I got
Yeah.
two daughters who need dad to be, still open to learning and asking questions and curious. And so,
Hmm.
I really, I look to hold on to that lightly as best as I'm able.
Yeah.
So who am I is someone who holds on to who am I pretty lightly.
Yeah. So how old are your daughters?
Teenagers, got two teenage
Oh,
daughters.
let's
They're
go.
great characters. Their mom and I are very proud of them. They're in it. They go through so much now. We didn't have these phones in our hands and this constant contact, and you see how that affects their ability to lead into things, because they know that they're being watched. They feel like they're being watched the whole time, because their lives are, they're not just them in the present, but they're also very much connected to every moment of, in the screens. It allows them, this digital world allows them to know what their friends are doing at that same moment. And
Hmm.
so we really work hard on doing things outside, doing things away from it all, and then also having a constructive and a positive relationship with it instead of bemoaning the all of the trials and tribulations that come with being a teenager. We really try and lend this idea that it's exciting and it's there's a lot to it and it's challenging.
Yeah.
And they do a good job. They do a really good job.
Yeah. Great insight. So I'm not a parent yet. I hope to be, but I know from starting like little businesses and stuff, I've treated those things as quote unquote my baby. And, there'll be nights when I'm going to sleep and I'm thinking about those things and what is the future to be and how can I influence, it or whatever. I imagine having children is probably like that, but 100 times fold over. So just a little context for the question here, where I'm coming from. I grew up till 16 with a father, and then after that, did not have a dad. Have two sisters. So I was at the place where I was starting to well enough kind of figure out life. And in some respects, I think it's easier for a guy with the absence of that to kind of grow up. But for the girls, it was a lot harder. So for you, being a dad, like having those girls, you're talking about some of these trials and tribulations they go through. What is it like daily to always have on your mind, I guess, like the future that you are influencing? Like, what do you have certain practices that you've put into place to make sure they know you love them and how you love them and how to be loved? Or
yeah, I mean, so much of that just comes down to showing up.
Yeah.
It's and it's showing up when it's raining. It's showing up when it's hard. It's showing up when when you're having your own struggles, and then your kids are looking at like, hey, Dad, Mom, where are you at? So I don't know. I think we joke our parenting philosophy has been that you're doing fine if 33.3% of the time something happens, you go like, oh, I did an okay job there. And 33% of the time, part three, you're going to be going like, oh, I would like a redo. And the rest of the time, you're just going, I have no idea what I'm doing. So good too. Yeah, I try not to. You can spend a lot of time in the doldrums of worry. You can spend a lot of time laying in bed at night, thinking about all the things that could happen. And while that serves, there is a function in that allows you to, be prepared when things may inevitably happen. It's also, you can't, as we said before, you can't decide as it goes, and it's their life. It's where so much of it revolves around is just giving space to the fact that they have their own agency, and that's their decisions. So, for instance, when our daughters didn't want to play a certain sport, it wasn't a matter of like, no, we signed up for this, we committed to it. It was always this idea that you have agency. Here is the facts, here are the commitments we made, and yes, this is difficult, but the agency was with the fact that it was unconditional support. So, that came with some tough moments. It's come with some, ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it's really saying to them, you have agency, so that because the goal is not for them to be, your sidekick. It's their life, it's their journey, and really, like, you're setting them up you're giving them the tools to be out there in the big bad world, and they know that they have that unconditional support, and that's what my parents did. That's what Jenny's parents did. So that's what we hope to give to our children, is this sense of agency over the actions they take, the consequences that come of them, and then the fortitude and just the ability to keep working at it, keep pressing ahead. So
yeah,
it's good insight. It's not a perfect journey.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I have a very specific question then. It's a selfish question because it's something I've struggled with. So being in kind of the only man in the family situation with two younger sisters, as we've gotten older, my youngest sister is 12 years younger than me, and watching her make some decisions that, like you said, you give them the facts, she's going to make a decision that obviously I don't agree with. And I've had a hard time with like being a support through that. So I would love to hear from an experienced father, when you give the facts and you say what needs to happen, how do you support someone when they make a bad decision?
I mean, maybe that's the first part of it. There are no bad decisions. It's just decisions. It's not better or worse. It's just different. Right. And, I think for me, for us, it's being around. They're going to make decisions. They're going to, and some of those decisions you're going to scratch your head at. It's what comes to mind, or honestly, is being on a soccer field one day and struggling with some parenting stuff, and in the middle of a game, this wonderful Iranian dentist that I play soccer with comes over and says, "What's with you today? Where are you? Where are you at? You're not here." And I say, "Oh, Farzad, I'm struggling. My kids are, we're struggling a little bit here." And I start to lean into it. And this is in the middle of the game. Game's going on around us. I'm playing striker. He's center mid. So we're missing two players in the middle.
Wow.
And he wanders over, he puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, and it's in that beautiful Iranian accent, you cannot steal your children's karma. And I said, "Wait, what?" He said, "It's their karma. It's not yours. Go play soccer." And I like that. I come back to that a lot. Our about to turn 17-year-old was going through her first kind of, relationship thing. And we were away with her, and you wanted so badly to go and just hug her and say, "Just do this and do this." And it says, and I kept just stuffing the words back in my mouth. I kept going like, and just listening to her, not trying to convince her to do one thing or the other. You're pretty much guaranteed if you try and convince someone to do something, they're going to do the opposite. And if you try and use reverse psychology, they're going to be onto you, and they're not, and then they're not going to trust you.
It's an old technique.
So many times I ask of myself, and I suppose I'm asking of others, like, are you saying that for you or for them? Because if it's for you, but it's under the guise of being for them, what's this really about? So often, and I don't bat 1,000 on this. I don't even know if I bat 500, but I do my best to just sometimes not say anything. I'm there, Hey kiddo, I'm here. I got you if you need me, but I'm not gonna drive that decision. And even in terms of laying out what I would do, or let's go through the facts, starting to get into a little bit of who are you doing this for. So, we really, as best we're able, leave space for them to make those decisions and make those errors, because they need that. They need to, that's agency, right? Agency is not just when it's convenient. Agency is when it's sometimes you got to just sit there and go like, you got to go, put those words back in. So I do that as best I'm able. And again, I'll say it. We don't bat 1,000, but
Sure.
that would be the direction in which we err, is to really ask, who am I talking? Who am I talking to here? Am I talking to myself, or am I talking to them?
Yeah, I like that. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because when you said kind of, bringing the words kind of back in your mouth, or keeping them there, because some of the greatest breakthroughs I think that I've had on the receiving end of that silence, the wisdom of silence, is like once I say something and then it's allowed to kind of stick in the air for a minute, I can look at it and be like, wait a second, that doesn't. It sounds different on the inside, and then once you get it on the outside, you're like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of flawed logic there.
Yeah. Like, not sure that really adds up. So yeah, I've done many of those. I've had to go back later too and say, hey, dad started talking there, and it just kept coming out. So like, this is your thing. This is your decision. You go make it. And mom and dad are here, but this is your decision.
Yeah.
It's hard to do though.
Really hard to do. I can only imagine. I'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, you go.
So, Simon, as a kid, what was like, we're talking pretty young. You're just starting to talk all the way up to maybe even like middle school. What were you like?
I can hear Ken and Adrian right now saying he was always at the door knocking, saying, "Let's go play." And they were saying like, "I got homework to do, bro." And I'd say, "Yeah, neat. Like, let's go play." So I grew up on a small street, 1 block long in Kingston, Ontario, just off Queen's University campus. It was an incredible place to grow up. The Jennings grew up across the street, Ted and his brother Jake, and we had a great neighborhood. We had a lot of great friends. Yeah, I think I was the kid who was always ready to play, and I learned pretty early on, and it served me well later. I love the theater of sport. I really like. I obviously I'm competitive, and obviously winning is part of that. But if we were playing at 10, it was and we were up 9-4. I wouldn't put it in the net because I wanted the game to go on forever. I wanted the lights to go out and to keep playing. And
Hmm.
if you ever want to see me get a little bit stroppy, it's because, I'm playing now over 35's Masters B soccer, and someone will say the lights go out at 10, right? They dim at 2 minutes too. And if someone at 9:50 says, "Oh, come on, 1 minute to go, let's wrap it up," I'll walk straight up and go, "Hey, no, no, no. If you need to leave, you can leave. But I'm playing till those lights dim. Like let's honor that." And I've been that way since I was a little kid. If Glenn and Adrian listen to this, they'll laugh and go, "He was worse than that." So I wanted to play, be outside the whole time. And when I wasn't outside, I was inside playing Dungeons and Dragons in the world of imagination.
Yeah.
And I really think that suited me. That really served me well later on. I have a vivid imagination. The guys I grew up playing with, they've gone on to be remarkable people.
Hmm.
And we all kind of look back and go, what a funny little thread there. We built huge worlds. As all the way from 6 to 16, we were playing D&D. If you go through the Olympic medalists in chat, maybe it's not D&D, but it will be something similar. It will be, they read a lot of science fiction, or they had a vivid imagination, and they are eternally curious and forever curious. And it's easy to say you're forever curious. It's another thing to be forever curious. That's the trait that defines, as far as I can tell, the difference between, let's say, that cohort of medalists and otherwise. They are eternally curious. Sometimes they're asking questions. I've asked questions of people, and they say, what do you mean? How do you not know the answer to that? So I think I know the answer to that, but I want to if you give the same answer and I verified something, you give a different answer, I learned something. You give an outrageous answer that I disagree with, I also learned something.
Mm.
And I really noticed we all know how to say that. We all know the word salad to jam together to say curious and, resilient and always learning. It's another thing to act on that. And that's a trait that I noticed. If you spend time with Alistair Brownlee, he's still asking questions. He's got 2 Olympic gold medals. He's a legend. Still asking questions. Still like, how does that work? What's that thing? How do I do that? Always asking questions, and never too busy to ask a question. So yeah, that would be me as a kid. Question. Probably got asked to shut up a couple times, but I did get asked to shut up a lot, but I just asked the question, why? Why shut up? Why should I shut up? So.
Always seeking a deeper level of understanding. The 2 guys you mentioned a few times, were those your brothers?
No, just the boys that grew up in the neighborhood. No. I grew up with a whole, I didn't realize it at the time, but I grew up with a whole lot of women. I got a sister, I got 2 aunts, I got a cousin. It's a family of women. There's a couple of us men in there, but we had to navigate a family of women, and now I'm still got a family of women.
Yeah,
so,
I was gonna say, how has that helped you to navigate your current relationship and being a father?
Still no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely no idea what it. Not even the direction in which to err. I just, sit on my hands and try to get along. It's hard. I actually feel like I struggled in my career training with women.
Really?
I was, I wasn't I didn't build. I like this idea that you build safe space in which others can prosper. And I don't think we did that. I didn't have the tools. Maybe I hope I do now. I hope the people around me feel that way. But I don't think anyone would say that trained with me that, he was they would definitely not say he was either got trained with. But I think I had a certain level of expectations, and I had one way of doing it. And I felt like I was under a lot of pressure, especially because I had success so young. And then I had so much expectation after that. I never went to a race again after one in Sydney where I wasn't expected to be a contender. Top. And our funding for our national organization, our federation, really depended on it for a long time. And so I didn't really have the tools, and frankly, the people around me didn't have the tools. I hope they do now, but we didn't back then. We as an organization, Triathlon Canada went from crawling to running without ever walking, And so they've spent kind of 24 years since then trying to learn how to walk again, because we were inundated with funding, expectations, people
Yeah.
power, like just it just became one long power battle for who controlled
Mm.
who got to hold the talking stick. And so yeah, I think I participated in a lot of like if you can either do it or you're either with us or you're with the terrorists kind of thing.
Mm.
I think kind of did a lot of that. I did a lot of like I think we tried to prove that we would often point at the scoreboard. You want to join our squad? Well, obviously we know what we're doing. Look at the runs on the board. We got Greg Bennett here. We got Laura Bennett. We've got world champions. We know what we're doing. You can join us, but you can only stay if you do what we do. And obviously that leaves people going like, oh, wow, I'm only here as a function of how I help them. I'm not here because this is a safe space in which I could prosper too.
Mm.
So we were very, I would almost think we'd say we took pride we took pride in being relentless. And part of that relentlessness would lean a little bit close to ruthless in terms of, you don't agree with that? There's the door.
Mm.
And that's not a way to group. That doesn't build cohesive team. That is not a positive sporting experience for anyone but the people who hold the talking stick. So I've done a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting that. I burned a lot of bridges, frankly. And it's been a decade of trying to reconcile within myself why and how and be at peace with that.
Mm.
And then and learning lessons for that and continue to learn lessons. It's not a perfect art. I pretend I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I seem to know what I'm doing now.
So or maybe the better question is, what happened to where you were able to observe this problem or this issue and start to like think backwards, like, okay, how could this change?
I mean, if I keep going with that analogy, you start to get to the rivers you're thinking you can cross, and then the bridges that burnt. You go, huh? It's kind of weird. Like I can keep blaming other people here. I can say, oh, that bridge fell down. That wasn't my fault. And that bridge wasn't built properly. That's not my fault. And I didn't start that fire. That's not my fault. And then all of a sudden you're on an island, and you're like, huh? and you're going, huh? I'm not sure. As much as I'm a swimmer, I'm not sure I can get across this. I better build some bridges again. So yeah, it's been a journey to do that. I won't get maybe into the specifics of it, but over time, I've had a beer on the deck with a couple of those people that I burned bridges with, and we've kind of put that to rest. And they've said their piece in it too. Hey, I think I've burnt my end of that bridge too. And I'm like, well, thank you. Like this isn't just a one way. This isn't just me as the martyr that did all these wrong things. It was just the journey I had.
Yeah.
The people along the way, I have tremendous respect for the fact that they've also showed back up with, a hammer and nails to rebuild that bridge. So, yeah, it is what it is. It's a life well lived. So.
Yeah. So I've met you all of now 26 minutes. So some of these assumptions may come back to bite me, but hey, we only live once. So you strike me as a person now who I'm talking to who is, I don't know if profoundly maybe a bit of a strong word, but quite a bit different than the Simon that maybe when he was 24, 25. Is that an accurate assessment? More of your spirit. I can sense the competition.
Yeah.
I can sense the...
Yeah, I mean, we're still a thread of that essence of that, I still have that. I really, now my thing is like, I call it the pilot light. Sometimes I have some hard time turning it on. And then once it's on, sometimes I have a hard time turning it off. There's a couple soccer games out there that there's some guys out there that say like, wow, he never stopped, and so I still have that relentless piece in that. I take great pride in a soccer game on going to find the biggest guy I can on the defense and standing beside him and saying like, let's go. So I still got that in me. I still I like that part of it. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a strange experience. You think you're racing and you've got these goals and you're like, in that case, I wanted to hear the national anthem. And then all of a sudden you hear the national anthem and everyone's telling you it's just one long string of adulation, and I think what we miss is, and I started to learn is on the other side of adulation is isolation. And the people that you used to meet. So Greg Bennett and our crew, we used to meet at 6 a.m. at Starbucks every morning. And that would be when we go to the pool or we go to training session. That was how the training went. And all of a sudden, you're busy because you got all these other commitments, because you got a sponsor commitment, because you're doing an interview because you're a big deal. And all of a sudden your friends are kind of like, huh, he said he was going to show up, but he's busy. And they go on with their lives because as they should. And then you kind of come strolling back in and go like, hey, what are we up to? And everyone goes, huh, big man's back. Like, and they don't do it from a malicious standpoint. They're kind of just looking at you like, hey, don't you forget who your people are, and you start to, you're enchanted by this idea, you're infatuated. You become a little infatuated with your story of self. People asking you questions. I mean, back then, I haven't done a podcast in maybe a year, but back then you're doing some sort of interview almost multiple
Every
times in a
week.
week. Sure, you're getting stopped. You might even be at the pool and someone stops and has questions for you. So in essence, where are you from? What did you do? How do you think about this? And it's very hard. You get infatuated with your story of self. And the science is very clear. Our ability to let go, our story of self resides in our prefrontal cortex. And to the absence of or downgrade of our prefrontal cortex is flow state. So the more time you spend enthralled and infatuated with your story of self, which includes consequences and how I got here, but what it doesn't involve is the present moment. That's flow state, right? There is no other moment. I'm
Can be completely
immersed
present.
in this moment. Yeah, you're completely present. And so it's hard to achieve flow state. And I didn't have to do this. I had the tail end of my career, social media came in. I had a Twitter account kind of in the last 4 years of my career, but before that, now the athletes are really having this. It's a difficult thing. You got to tell your story. They think they got to tell their story of self. And then the more they tell their story of self, they get to a race. And as soon as it's not unfolding in the way, or even if it is unfolding in the way that they wanted it to, they're thinking about thinking, and they're no longer in flow state. So, I rambled on long enough that I can't remember what your question was, but that's where I'm at now. It's really trying to reconcile all that and, find peace with it.
Yeah, no, you answered the question well, although I can't remember exactly what I asked.
That's the beauty of recording it.
Exactly.
Go to the transcript. Go look at the transcript.
Right. But that kind of led me to the next point, because you've mentioned a few times, as we've been talking about self, like the concept of holding onto it lightly. So that leads me to think that at one point you were holding onto it very tightly, and maybe it was ripped out of your hands in a pretty brutal way. So what is the origin of that philosophy of like holding on to it lightly? There's no rush, by the way.
No. You can cut out the long pauses. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You spend a lot of time. After my career was done, I spent a lot of time out on the water, and you go through all the angst and all the, what is this all about? Why am I here? Why do I feel different than I used to? You're trying to recalibrate to this idea that you used to work out 30 plus hours a week, and now you've got like 25 minutes here and there, and you got all these other adult responsibilities you got to keep up with. And then somewhere in there, you're suffering, in some cases, if you burn some bridges, you're like, now you're dealing with the consequences of that. And then you entrench yourself in like, no, this is the reason that I'm right. I did a lot of that too. And this is why this is the way I think it should be. And I did a lot of that. And then you start, that doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. Certainly people don't want to hang out with those people. So
Yeah.
you end up either, I don't know, working to come to peace with it. You're never at peace with it, but you working towards that, or you dig in. And digging into a pretty lonely existence. And I've certainly had my own experience with that. So to answer your question, I think it's just a lot of time. It was a lot of time just out there doing nothing, out there. And remember, for so many years, every single session, every time I was outside, it was like another brick in the wall. It was more mortar that I was putting towards this like goal I had. And then all of a sudden you're out there and you're like, it doesn't even matter if I do this. And then at first you're thinking that, and then eventually like, it's even more important I do this. And there's no reason other than just doing it, just being out here. And then those epiphanies come to you. I kind of think of them as like inconvenient truths. You confront the inconvenient truths. A yoga is a good way to do it because a yoga mat, let me say a mat will meet you where you're at, because out in the woods you can distract yourself. If you go to a session yoga, and you're committed to staying in that little mat, then every time you try to escape and distract yourself, there's nowhere to go. And so you have to confront these inconvenient truths. And so some of for all of us, and for me in this case, it was, I did behave like that. That did happen. That was my reaction. Oh dear. And so you have that inconvenient truth of like, oh no, that's true. There's no going around that. Like, that's what happened. That's the way I behaved. And these are the ongoing consequences. And so, I guess in that process, you either find some peace with it and work towards, not making those same mistakes again. So just so you can make a bunch of new mistakes, but, that's what happened. Just the time outside, the time with it, undistracted, kind of sitting with it.
Yeah.
That's how that process happened, and will continue to happen. I turned 50 next year, and I got a long way to go. So
yeah,
I got old genes, and in my family, I got old genes. So I got a long way to go. I'm not halfway there yet. So we'll see. We shall see.
What's the oldest living person in your extended family, or that lived as long as?
Gran lived to 102.
Wow.
Nan lived to 96. Granddad lived to 92.
You got a whole other lifetime then.
My granddad on my dad's side went to 2 world wars and suffered, and was an Aussie, was a brigadier general, and saw the worst of the worst. And so I'm sure he would have lived a long time if he hadn't seen the worst of the worst and being subject to the worst of them. So yeah, we got a lot of longevity genes in the family. So
yeah,
that's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll see.
So between you, actually, no, I want to go back. I want to ask you a question about reconciliation, or I guess that's probably a good enough word. Like, you burned a lot of bridges, and you mentioned briefly that you had a couple of those, have a beer moments and come to terms and to peace with something. But do you still carry a level of burden for the Simon that was and the relationships that may have been burned, or have you come to peace with it?
I do like this notion. I think our cells turn over every 70 years. So, my past self, that was the biggest thing I realized in the last however many years is, our memory, we when we're young, we think our memory is just like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's the story I know now. And that I guarantee you that's exactly what happened. And then you slowly hear stories shift over time. I used to tell the story about, I used to do corporate talks, and I tell the story about the athlete room in Beijing and how everyone left and it narrowed down, and there was only 4 of us left, and we had a rice vest on, and it was Jan Frodeno, and it was Bevan Doherty, and it was Javier Gomez, and that just happened to be the top 4, and everyone else left the room. And then years later, my coach at the time, Joel Filia, heard that story. He was like, I have a picture. There's like 25 people in that room. What are you talking about? I was like, oh wow, I didn't make that up, but I made it up. Like slowly over time, I just parsed out a couple people here, a couple people there, and my memory just shifted, and I don't remember where I started and where it ended. And so I've had many moments like that where you start to realize, again, that comes back to that hold it lightly, hold on to your memories lightly too, because it's a kaleidoscope. It's forever changing. So, and also coming to, there's, you become a bit of a meme, especially when you achieve some notoriety. And so letting go of that too, like, I'd hear a story about myself. Someone would say, oh man, I heard you did this and I heard you did that. And I go, the only problem with that is like, I wasn't there for that. And I don't know who that person is. So that's a neat story. It sounds like you got a great, it's very exciting. It's very dramatic, but I don't need to own that because I don't even know who that person you're talking about is. And I wasn't at that race. So neat story. And I can't tell you how many stories I've heard like that, where because you become a bit of a public domain,
Become
so
a legend.
You just detach yourself from it, which means also you got to detach yourself from all the great things of it too. Like where you're like, this, that, you got to also let go of that part too. So yeah, I don't know. But the guy that burned bridges was also doing the best he could. He was working hard. He tried to honor his friends, you know? So the rest of it is details that are kind of a meme that I know a lot about, but not all about. And maybe I know like 49.9% of the story, but that's the truth, that I don't know the rest of it. And I'm gonna let that one go. So it was nice to sit and have that beer on the deck, specifically with the person I'm thinking of, because there was a lot of hurt that went on there. There was a lot of misunderstanding, and there was a lot of people had a lot of opinions on it, and probably still, maybe still do, but they don't care. They're not thinking about it. But we sat on the deck and kind of said, and like, huh, that was a different time in my life, and like, you're a good dude. And he said the same thing and clinked beers, and then the rest is history, you know?
Yeah.
Onwards. And in fact, what I really, really appreciated and respected of him, the next thing he did was he said, hey, sounds like your daughter plays soccer. I'm down in the neighborhood next week. Can I join you and watch the game? And I thought, I've had a lot of coaches over the years and I haven't really stayed in touch. I tried. It's kind of like pulling teeth sometimes. I'm not trying to take shots at anyone here. It's just true. This person wasn't a coach, but they've been in more soccer games and participated in more and been more interested in my life than any of the people who coached me, it seems. So, credit where credit's due. That's a sign of character, And so, for all that we went through, the fact that he showed up a week later and just sat through 90 minutes of, U14 soccer really spoke volumes about him as a person. And here we are, years later, I'm telling the story like, I really appreciate that. It meant a lot to me. Yeah, it just meant a lot to me. Words are words, actions. That's where it's at. So he took action there. Like I said, some of the other people I've been associated with are really not trying to bring up old wounds or take stats here. Just factually, like, it's like pulling teeth trying to get together with them. Yeah. So eventually kind of go like, I guess that's where we're at. You move on. But this guy, he showed up, and that meant a lot to me, and I'll always remember that.
Yeah. I'm like trying to put together the pieces to figure out who this is.
It's pretty. If you go, you don't have to go look far to know who it is, but and he's been through it, and he's had his own journey with it all. So all the credit to him, Kelly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. So I want to go back a little bit because you've mentioned soccer a few times. Obviously, soccer is a passion of yours. It sounds like, and it's sandwiched your triathlon career from very young. You were doing soccer, and then I guess you're still doing it now. So when you were very young, like when did you first touch the soccer ball, and what is it about that sport that really just gravitated? Or you gravitated?
My first sport was gymnastics. I'm a product of a scientist meets a gymnast, So Mom was a gymnast and she's an incredible athlete. My mom's badass. She just finished 200K of cycling in Europe, and I won't say how old she is, but she's a little bit older than we are. Yeah. And she paddles her age every year. She plays pickleball 2 to 3 times a week. The only rule is don't chip it over her head because, 80-year-olds don't go backwards. And so so an athlete and then a scientist. My dad, he was 35 years as senior research scientist at DuPont. I have like dad's analytical and mom's athleticism, and that was a gift. So gymnastics, I grew up at the gym club. I was there as a little kid just watching people perform gymnastics is the science of human movement. So I was participating in the science. I was observing the science of human movement from like probably day 3. And so along the line, I played hockey. I played every sport. I love sport. I love pickup sport. And so I played that first, and eventually I got into running, and eventually swimming. And then the run coach came to me and my dad and said, "Oh, he shouldn't be playing soccer. He shouldn't be playing hockey. He should just run. He's such a good runner." And my dad said, "I think he's just going to do whatever he loves to do, and we'll see how the rest unfolds." And
agency.
Agency. Boom. Well done. Yeah, that was it. So, I played soccer then. I never learned how to speak team. I don't know. I still don't know. I made the Masters B All-Star team, Vancouver Island soccer team, and I sat in the locker room and I was like late to every joke. I was I was that guy. I mean, like, and then when it would all go quiet, I was just as I would say, like, I like music too. And then they're all going to look at me and I'd say, yeah. And I go, and yeah, cool stuff. And so I don't, I try and speak team as best I'm able. I think I speak closer to Asperger's than I do to teams.
Really?
Yeah, that's probably true. Um, but I started to learn over time one of the things I really love about it. And I have this real fun moment where I come strolling onto the pitch. I told you a story about the Iranian guy, but another time I strolled on, another guy said to me, "How you doing?" I started answering. He goes, "Hey, hey, hey." He's from Sheffield, so he's UK. He's, "I don't really care how you're doing. I just need you to get that little round ball, stop it from going in that rectangle, take it and try and put it in the other rectangle." I love that. I loved it. It's ridiculous. So's triathlon, Hey, we're gonna make up some things and we're gonna, it's all just excuses not to fight. So
Hmm.
that's I think what I love about endurance sport is we're the people you'd send to get the medicine. That's how I think of endurance athletes. Courtney DeWalter, if you needed to get the medicine 2 valleys over 100 miles away, you'd send a bunch of people, but you'd be like, "Hey, Courtney, like, you got this." Greatest endurance athlete of all time outside of whoever the greatest swimmer of all time is,
Hmm.
because truly the greatest endurance athlete of all time has to be the endurance swimmer. You stop, you drown. That's not true of any other
Yeah.
endurance endeavor. But I don't know who that is, so I always qualify Courtney DeWalter as the greatest endurance athlete of all time because she's the one that would come back with the medicine.
Yeah.
And that suits me. That's the way I look at it now. When we go on our fishing trips, I'm not the captain of the boat. I'm just a sous chef, but I wear a T-shirt that it theoretically says "in case of emergency, break glass." If I'm just there to have a good time catching fish, but you need to get home. If the wind comes up and you need to get home, then like I got this. So I've
Yeah.
got this as part of a team, but I also got this. So that's where I take pride in. That's where I'm most in my element is having fun until we need to get home, and then I'll get you home.
Yeah.
Go get the medicine.
Yeah. Interesting. So with today, like what encapsulates your time? Like what is Simon doing for fulfillment? I mean, obviously you're a father, so that's a full-time job and then you've got other commitments, I'm sure, but I'm just curious to get a picture into what's Simon in 2024. What's he got going on?
Well, my day to day revolves around being involved with various enterprises. The one of which is the Feed. I help make recommendations for their high performance team. That's been a real joy. It's a real joy because the people at the Feed are just great. There's a crew of people that are in that office who work bloody hard, and they're all great people. So I really enjoy that part. It was not what I expected. I got in there thinking I was doing this one thing, and at the end for this reason, and at the end of it, now I'm like, oh man, that person are just great people. They work really hard. They love it. They truly love endurance sport. So I make recommendations there. I work with Alistair Brownlee on a company he started with Pete Pastides, who's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I've been friends with now with Alistair for many, many years, and I've always been in touch and compared notes. And to be part of what he built at Podium Tech, I'm really excited about. So that's my day to day. My
What
week
sorry,
revolves
really
around.
quick. What's
Oh
Podium
yeah,
Tech? I'm curious.
we're just an information technology company. We provide technology. We work with uh, clients to build out whatever it is, whatever digital assets, digital rights management they need. Really smart people work there, and I think we're pushing at the forefront of providing technology solutions that are for athletes that around securing digital IDs. That's a big issue now with the impersonations that are beginning. I think there's people look into that, and yeah, I don't want to fearmonger, but you got to be pretty careful. You got to think that through. And so we provide technical solutions for securing digital IDs and then building out information technology that enables athletes to further the contribution. That's what we want. We want to further the contribution they can make to increase the leverage that they have so that they can contribute in a positive manner. My passion is about sanitized water, clean water. We have Indigenous communities here in Canada that don't have clean water. If you don't have
Wow,
clean
really?
water, that's the most basic thing, right? That's the That's the only thing. It all starts with that. My own company is called Carry Water Chocolate because
Mm.
that's the basics. That's you got to get. You don't have sanitized water, you don't have anything. When Peter
Mm.
Buttigieg started at the Ministry of Transportation in the United States, they said, "What bridge are you going to build? What highways are you going to build?" He said, "Oh, we're building toilets. We're working on sanitation here." And I was like, "Yeah, right, exactly." And in Canada and in the United States, across the world, that's what we got to do. We have a reconciliation to continue to work towards with the Indigenous people in Canada, and that starts with clean water. The idea that we build anything but have every single community have access to clean water is what are you working on? So that's what drives me in the day to day. Each week I make it to the soccer game each week. Whenever I'm struggling, I just think, got soccer on Thursday. Just make it to Thursday, make it to
Yeah.
Thursday. And all year revolves around the last week of July, making it to the fishing trip because my favorite thing in the world is fishing.
Is this like
So
deep sea fishing or?
this is spear fishing, javelin fishing.
Oh, wow.
I don't. The boys do it. I mean, I go fishing with a military helicopter pilot and a marine biologist. And Big Dave is a HVAC, HVAC installer who he's
Yeah.
the captain of the ship. Like I said before, I just stand there and I go fish, fish.
Oh, you don't get in the water at all.
I mean, I do. I love to show off my swimming ability. I'm way out in the middle of the ocean swimming. I'm that guy. I just do it to show off, though. They're the fishermen. I do a bit of fishing, but I really like being part of that team. My
Yeah.
job is I'm on the water watching them. So
Making sure they're
Carl's
good.
diving, Rob's good. They're doing their whole thing. Dave's keeping an eye on boats. We're on an 18-foot long inflatable paddle board it's 5 feet wide. It's a raft. We got a
Wow.
bunch of coolers. We're out there wherever we are. The whales are going by, and the boys are out there with their big javelin. There's these big, they're like 2 ski poles.
Yeah.
Just wrapped together with the metal prong. Rob builds it all. He forges the spear. He takes old ski poles and binds them, and then you got a bungee, you pull it under your arm, and off you go. And so I do a bit of it, but I miss every time it seems. So the boys get after it. That's my favorite thing in the world.
How long is this trip?
We go this year. We're going for 10 days.
And you stay on this raft?
No, we've done it. We did it 2 years ago. We stayed on the raft the whole time. You're talking. We just do laps as the biggest islands we can find in the Northern Gulf Islands. I was just up at Nemo Bay with Eric Lagerson and Nick Goldstein doing. They were filming.
Yeah, is this that project they're working on?
Yeah, they're working on a movie. They're just, again, good human beings doing interesting things. So they said, "Oh, we want to go to Tofino," which is on the west coast here of the island. And I say, "Hey, Tofino's amazing, but one of my favorite people in the world, this family owns this resort called Nemo Bay, and I've been swimming up there. I've got myself in trouble a couple times swimming, and so I said to Eric, "Come and see where I swim. Come and see where I fish. And come and see who taught me how to fish. Come and meet who taught me how to fish." And that place revolves around food. It revolves around music, and then if you happen to fish, it's or you want to open water swim, it's an incredible place to go. So I was kind of the site director there. I guide up there. I don't have the guiding certificates. You got a proper guide who's got the guiding certificates. I sign the waiver like everybody else. But I know where to go. I know the places that I've swum. I know how to navigate the current. That's my passion. So, that's my role in it all. So to answer your question, my day-to-day revolves around the things, around my family and figuring out, how to navigate.
Yeah.
And then it revolves around working with Podium Tech and with the Feed and a couple other ventures I'm involved in. And then the week revolves around soccer, and the year revolves around fishing.
Wow.
That's what keeps me upright.
Yeah. It's a pretty good plan. You said your oldest daughter is 17, right?
Yeah.
Your younger daughter tomorrow. Wow.
14. Yeah.
You got something planned for the birthday?
Yeah, I will be. It's agency, right? So she decides what she's up to that day. She's 17 too. She's got plans. I assure you.
Yeah, she's got it.
But yeah, we have a great family day. We're a modern family, we separated 10 years ago, but Jenny's got a wonderful partner, and he takes care of his business, and a very, very bright, good human being. And I have a wonderful partner, Sarah, and we do the same. And she's that hold it lightly. Sarah's, I met her a year ago, and that was one of the first things I really came to. I was like, "Oh, you call it holding it lightly?" Eh? She said, "Yeah, hold it lightly, hold it gently." And she said,
Yeah.
"All right, darling, you're the
Yeah,
best."
that
So
that hit you in the heart a little bit,
it did,
get you.
yeah. She's extraordinary. She's so bright. She's so funny. That's what I love. I love humor. So she's bright. She works pretty hard, but she's funny. She's real funny, and also she's pretty profound, tucked in all that. So
Yeah,
hopefully she doesn't listen to this.
yeah. We'll make sure to tag her. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Don't insult.
So you're going on 50. You've got your kids here. You get 'em another 10 years or so, maybe even less. Like you're going to be moving into a different stage of like, I guess we could call it empty nesting, but they'll be kind of more or less on your own. Do you think that you'll continue on this? The year revolves around fishing and the week revolves around soccer, and you think you'll just kind of continue that on?
I hope so. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I always come back to. It's gonna sure the details are gonna change, but
Yeah.
but the premise is the same. I really like that. Fishing so you wanna be whatever you're working towards. You want to learn to fish because fishing's patience. Fishing's patience, and it's so fundamental to our. You come home with more calories than you left. So if you're moving, say for me, moving from sport, from racing high performance sport to moving into what's next, when I discovered this thing where you went out with X amount of calories, and hopefully maybe you came home with more calories than you left with. That replaced for me everything I got from sport. That's the competition that I now have. At soccer, I just went to theater. This year, I wasn't available for the last game of the year. We played this Brazilian Masters team from Vancouver who'd beaten everybody all year round. We're a B squad. They're an A squad. We were the last ranked team. They're the best ranked team. They were supposed to just annihilate us. As I flew into Vancouver we'd been traveling. I flew in. No, I flew in and they were playing. So I was landing as the game started, and I theoretically could have seen it from the plane. And the boys went up 2-0. Eventually, the Brazilians tied it 2-2, and they won it. And the Brazilians won it in a shootout. And I don't care. I'm sure it would be neat if we won because I could have played the next game of that cup of the BC Masters Cup. But the fact that the boys took this team to 2-2 to shootouts, I love the theater of that. That's great. So I'll keep participating in that. It's where my social group is, outside of my cohort that I fish with and the friends I've met through sport. My week, like I said, not just revolves around playing soccer, but it revolves around seeing that cohort of people that play soccer. And it was never more apparent to me than after COVID, when you came back that first time. And it was ridiculous. You had to go in that gate, exit that other gate. You had to put your bags 10 feet apart. It was all the ridiculous things that came with COVID. But the most important thing was looking at the boys saying, "You're here, you're here, you're here. I see you. You're still alive. Like this is fist bump. Let's go." So yeah, we'll see. If it turns to empty nesting, who knows? Who knows what the future holds in that. Of course, they're going to be off and doing things in the world, but they'll always have a place at home. So I don't know, whatever that means.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll check back in for the episode 2.
There you go. I'll do it from the fishing boat. So, there you go.
Yeah, when do you go? When is it every year? What time?
Yeah, it's last week of July.
Okay, so it's coming up.
This year. We're going on we pack in on we do the gear day is the 18th. The pack in's the 19th. We identified the island that I think we're gonna set up on. We've got the contingency plan in case someone gets there before we do. I think there's going to be, I don't know, it could be 10 or 15 of us actually kind of coming and going. We set up where there's a pack-in group, a pack-out group, and the rest of it is you can just come and go. So if you happen to be on North Vancouver Island and the last week of July, I'll give you a map and you just show up at the end of the trailhead. We paddle over, get you, we take you back to the island. There's a spot by the fire. And the only rule is, because the entire thing is just to make nice food outside.
That's what camping is. 90% of camping is eating.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, we're just making your way. You want to get up early when the sun's rising and make your coffee. And then you want to all have a big breakfast. And then you muck about for the day. And then you all gather back at the fire pit. And there's no fires here, but no but you sit by the whatever, the propane stove, and that's the whole goal. So you gotta only rule is you gotta bring either one meal, you make one meal for everybody, or you bring enough dry food for one other person. So that's like the only rule of the trip. So come with food and
Yeah.
beer, then you're set.
Yeah, exactly. I might have to check that out because you said like fishing takes patience, and I've tried fishing many times, and I'm pretty bad at it because the patience thing is something that I really struggle with, or the technique. Like some of my buddies, I was at the lake the other day, and they've got these different jigs, and they're like, oh, you got to kind of jerk it this way and reel it in at this speed and stop, and I'm like, oh my word, like this is so much. I can't not seem to ever catch anything. And then my buddy puts it in 2 seconds later, boom, he's like, oh, look at
Yeah.
that. It's like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So I
That's the best
might have to
part.
come out
I'm a
there.
useless fisherman. I'm useless. I'm the
Same.
guy that every time they're like, I think we went through this last time. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess we'll just have to go through it again because I don't really care to catch anything. I usually have a whole bunch of, granola and trail mix in the back pocket anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is about patience, and there's so much to be learned from it. It's about camaraderie. It's about patience. It's about peace and quiet. It's really a neat thing. So
Yeah.
I discovered as a little kid. We did a bit of it. It was gone from my life for 30 plus years, and then it's found its way. It's the last 10 years of, if I really think back, I'm like, every year just revolved around fishing, even though I wouldn't consider myself a fisherman. I guess I'm a fisherman. So
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, that's what we do now. Love it. Absolutely love it.
That's really neat. So I guess there's some parallels here that could be made with the current life you're living and the life you've lived in the past. When it comes to doubt and you feel that start to creep in, whether that was, I mean, I assume that was very difficult after, like you said, some of your success in Sydney, and then you're kind of going in with this expectation. Maybe it's different now, but how do you deal with doubt when you feel it start to creep in? Do you just embrace it? Do you shun it?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I have a lot of doubts too. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the human condition, isn't it? So what the bleep am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
is really human condition. That's where I find a lot of empathy for other people, compassion. I might not agree with the politics of some people, but I do think that they lay it just like I do at 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking, what is this all about? And some people have religion that explains that to them. They're still wondering. They don't wonder. They have faith, but they're like, that's what they have to go to for those moments of what is this all about. I don't know how I would describe. I mean, I know how I would describe my spirituality. To me, I have a notion of how I think about that. And I suppose embedded in there somewhere is the doubts that come with it. But my favorite author is Ken Liu. You really happen. I always carry this book with me everywhere I go.
Okay.
It's the Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu, and the quote is, "It is the regular state of things. It is the regular state of things. After all the rationalizing is done, there is no relief, no clarity. There is only the will to endure and the faith to live on." And so whenever I have doubt, I come back to Ken Liu. Says that, I mean,
That's your
there is
scripture.
no clarity. That's my scripture. Yeah, that's it right there. This book is, as you can see, it's very well worn. It's there's so many great parables and analogies in here.
Yeah.
But that's what I come back to. There is no relief, no clarity. There's only the will to endure and faith to live on. So that's how I navigate my way to when I feel doubt, is I come back to that. I don't come back to it instantly. Sometimes I have to like bang my head against the wall a little bit, and then I go, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
There is no relief. So there you go.
That quote I think I've heard of the book, but I've never read it. But that quote sounds like almost an acceptance that there will always be a lack of conclusion, or I guess a level of understanding that would bring like an ultimate level of peace or understanding. Is that how you would chew through that, or is that incorrect?
I mean, it just comes back to one word: is content. That's it. Like, you just be content. Aspire, work towards things, but also be content in that notion that there is no. You don't get them as much as, again, I believe you have faith. So that you'll come back to that. It has these like, that's the compass that you find your bearings with. And that gives you direction. But at the end of the day, you're still, I assume, like everybody else, we're all just lying there at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, what is going on? And if I have this theory that everything we do revolves around getting back to sleep soundly. The people you pick in the world are people that you help you get back to sleep soundly. The fact that you get up in the morning, you go find clean water, and then you make your way towards calories, and then you continue to work on the shelter that you're building. And
Yeah.
all of it is just so you can get back to bed. Yeah, that's where I always come back to is content, not wishing it was different. It's not better or worse. It's just different. That's what I try and center myself around.
Is it hard for you to find contentment ever?
At times. Yeah. At times I have vices that maybe like mask the discontent. Maybe that's the way to put it. But those have a way of coming out. Those have a way of they're temporary solutions, not solutions. They're temporary, duct tape. So that's it always comes back to that. Is just content in that notion that there is no clarity. Keep, 1 foot, keep walking. It's like the simplest like expression you might ever need is like forward articulated motion.
Yeah.
Keep walking.
Yeah.
Not feeling good? Well, a walk will solve it.
Yeah.
Really not feeling good? Salt water will solve it. Move towards the ocean. So that's what I do best I'm able. I am very privileged. I have so many opportunities. I have wonderful friends. I've lived a life of, I grew up in Kingston, Ontario, with every opportunity you could ever imagine. Two loving parents. So the onus is on me to then create opportunity, or to work towards creating opportunity for others too, safe space in which others prosper. So, and if you really distill it all the way down, it's just go figure out how to sanitize water.
Yeah.
Turn that salt water into drinkable water, and
like
you've made progress. So,
yeah.
There you go.
Good thoughts for life. So I have one final question for you. And we've interwoven this conversation with the idea of holding on lightly to self. If you were to give some advice to someone on how to do that, which we've talked about a little bit, but kind of condensed down, how would you tell someone like to be able to adopt that? I mean, really, it's a belief, like to believe that you're not as important as you think you are.
So reminiscent of giving advice. Don't like giving advice.
You've got good experience, and so I think
sure, I guess
it's your
so,
opportunity here. That
I'm still have no idea what I'm doing. So I don't know. Maybe that's it right there. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
you're capable. You're capable. It's think of the things that people have overcome. It's just astounding. Humans are. Human ingenuity is quite something. We're very critical of ourselves. We're very hard on ourselves. It's worse than it's ever been. It's this is the worst. The environment's the worst it's ever been. The social issues are the worst they've ever been. And yet, humans find a way. We just keep finding a way. So I really, keep chugging along. I don't know. You're in the just like everyone else is, and there is. Again, the only thing I really try and steer that's best I'm able away from is this idea that someone had it worse or better. We're all just living in our own skin, doing the best we can. I think I've said it a few times here. I'll say it again. Like, it's not better or worse. It's just different. And our experience is all relative. So, I just think people, maybe when we're struggling, we've just lost faith in our ability to in our own ability, but you don't have to look very far to realize that you're capable. You made it this far, that life is beautiful and it's a struggle. That's the deal. Mm-hmm. So, go You may as well go and build. Chaos is chaos, it's not, I've had my own little dances with chaos, and you don't sleep very well when life is chaotic. So
Yeah.
finding a semblance of peace is finding contentment in that. How do you do that? It's constructive defiance. That's what my dad would say. Participate in constructive defiance. What does that mean? Keep breathing. You're fine. Keep breathing. That's it. Every breath is an act of defiance. Because you could just stop, That's one of the things I love about the ocean. I love about paddleboarding. It's like, I could just take that leash off, kick the board 3 feet that way in this wind. I would never catch that no matter how great a swimmer I was. So it's that precarious, We all know that. We have all had experiences or know enough people who've turned left, not right, and the bus hit them. So, it's a fine line. So in that, there you go. Every breath is an act of defiance. So it's, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to exist in this world? And that chaotic existence is exhausting. You don't sleep very well. So you don't sleep. So if you don't sleep well, unwind the chaos and keep walking.
Yeah.
I'm talking to myself right now, not to anybody else.
No, that's what I figured. I'm wrestling with something in my mind, and I want to, because I think that me and you hold fairly similar values. If we were to put life as, like, I don't know, if we're trying to get somewhere, I feel like we're going to try to get there in somewhat similar ways. Obviously, you have more life experience, so you'd probably make less mistakes than I, but I'm having a hard time.
Different mistakes than you.
Yeah, different mistakes than me.
Different mistakes.
But I'm trying to wrestle with this idea that it seems, and you mentioned, I think, a few times, like, that you really truly believe that there's no one who has it better or worse. It's just, we're all kind of going through this. And I, to a degree, I agree with that, in that whether I broke my arm or I got slapped in the face, that level of pain was the worst level of pain that I've ever felt. So in that regard, I really do agree. But I almost want to push back a little bit and, like, ask you, like, do you really believe that, and if you do, I'd love to understand why, like, that somebody could not have a worse lot or a worse life than someone else? Because, like, somebody's waking up, like you said, they'll never get clean drinking water. They may die at 17. And then I was born here in the U.S. and I have my champagne problems where I can't find my charger cord for my phone.
Yeah.
So, like, there's, yeah. And I don't think that you truly would say that those lives are, equal and the same.
No, sorry. I 100% don't. I'm sitting here, the power's on. I'm going to go for a walk there. My dog's just sitting out there looking at me like, let's go. Yeah. So no part of me doesn't acknowledge that I have a lot of privilege and that it's quote unquote better. But at the end of the day,
we're all going to the grave.
And you're 1 degree from it not being, sure, that's that way now. Sure, I have sanitized water. I don't know. People have, it doesn't take long till life looks very different. So, that the precarious nature of it and the, like, temporary nature of it does mean that at the end of the day, it's not better or worse. It's just different. And it's relative. And I don't know. Yeah. Like, again, like, specific circumstances. Yeah, of course. Like, I have a tremendous amount of privilege, but when it's all broken down, all of that stuff, I'm 1 degree away too, just from a terrible accident happening or a change of world circumstances. And that's not true. Tell someone that, and, a couple of years, I don't know, 20 years ago in Argentina, they were living, it was a glorious lifestyle. And then now, you're walking the streets with bucket loads of money trying to pay for bread. So it's, that things can shift pretty quickly. But what I tell you, what really doesn't work is saying, well, I've had it the worst. That's a neat story. Love it. Like, you ever heard that Brian Regan skit, Me Monsters?
Yeah.
This is incredible, right? He's like, I walked on the moon. So, that, like, 2 molars, 2 impacted molars. I've had 4. Like, that is not a pretty existence. You do not want to be you had 2, I had 4. That you don't want to be in that. You don't want to be doing that to people. So I think that's more what I mean. It's like really sitting there trying to say, I've had it worse than anyone else. But not better, not worse, just different. I think that's where I'm coming from on that. Yeah. It's particularly around the idea of who's had it worse. That's a race to the bottom. That doesn't get us anywhere.
Good explanation. I know I said I had a last question, but I do have one more.
You go for it.
Um, so if I go and Google Simon Whitfield, Wikipedia is going to show up. I can learn everything that you've done athletically, maybe even a few things business wise. I scroll down a few more. It's going to be article after video of, going back 10, 12 years, all these different interviews and things you've done. So to a degree, like you're going to exist online forever in these regards. But for the Simon that I'm talking to right now, what do you desire, or what would be fulfilling to you to know that your legacy would be when you're gone from this world?
Yeah, that I showed up.
You showed up.
Yeah, I show up. It's, again, we're very good at word salads. Like, you're going to show up, but show up. I show up. I'm going to keep showing up. I struggle with that part because we're all very good at, we all know all the cliche things. I just said a bunch of them, we all know them. At the end of the day, those are words. When your friends need you, what's that wonderful thing? Greg Bennett told me this recently. He said, the guy comes back, he's met the girl of his dreams. He comes back, he says to his dad, we're going off on a pre-wedding vacation. I met the girl of my dreams. He says, Dad, here's a list of my 50 favorite people in the world. And can you invite them all to the wedding? We'll meet them at the airport when we get here. And he goes off and he comes back and he lands at the airport and he gets out of the plane and there's 5 people. He says, Dad, did you invite everybody? Where is everybody? He said, yeah, I invited them. He said, what did you tell them? I said, my son needs your help. Be here then. These are your friends. They show up. I really like that. Benno, he shows up every time. Greg Bennett's like a big brother to me. He always shows up. Doesn't play hard to get. He shows up. Hamish Carter shows up. So, yeah, show up. That's what I work towards. And to answer your question, I hope that's what whatever I'm doing, I am particularly with my kids, Dad shows up, and so with my friends, I show up. And so that's what I hope I'm remembered as. I show up. I show up imperfect, but I show up. That's, there you go. That's all I got.
That's beautiful. Well, Simon, thank you so
Speaking
much.
of showing up, my better half just showed up, so we're going for a walk.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, hopefully a lot of different pieces about who you are that many people haven't heard about before. So I really enjoyed it, and you're a deep thinker, and I really admire that. And I look forward to, hopefully I'll be 80 and you'll be 100, and I'll ask you again, are you still showing up?
Yeah, I'll show up, and if anytime you want to show up for a fishing trip, you just send me a note and say, "Hey, I'm on my way. What are the coordinates?" And I'll give you the sat phone. I'll give you the sat phone number, and you just bring food, bring beer, bring clean water, and I'll see you there. Show up.
Thank you so much to Simon for coming on and sharing so much about his life. It's really interesting to hear all of the different guiding principles and philosophies that he has adopted over time to live a full life. It sounds like he's come around to reconciliation and forgiveness, and just wanting to be a positive impact on the world, obviously ecologically through the water situation that he was talking about, and then obviously the other ventures he's involved in. Super inspiring, and only wish him the best. So thank you so much, Simon, for coming on. And I want to leave you with a few of these last words. When I asked him, how do you adopt the hold it lightly mentality, or that mindset of kind of letting go of self, he left a lot of really good tools there. So I would definitely go and listen to those a little bit more if you have time. If you made it to this point in the podcast, just want to say thank you so much. If you don't mind dropping a review, a like, a comment, a share, whatever it is that you can do on whatever platform you're listening and watching, that really does help to continue grow us in this sport. And definitely didn't mean to say sport, but this podcast. So yeah, you can do that by any way you choose. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can do that. The stupidquestions.show website. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much. And thanks again to Simon. See ya.